up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Top Podcast. Sorry, we were running a little behind. Ruben, I think he had to go make some tea or something, but we're back. We're live. We're here. Notive Gang, Grace, hello. So yes, if you're listening to this on the audio or VOD video version of this, we are streaming this now. This is just kind of
Mhm.
test the waters. Hopefully, it's something that can be reoccurring, but we're here. We're not the Q word, but we're here. Ruben, my brother, what is up? As you can see, Christian is he's off doing his on his school grind. I kind of am too, but I'm still here to talk about the beautiful game. But before I keep talking, Ruben,
Sure.
bro, what's up?
Man, a lot to talk about, eh?
one Hundred
But
percent.
life is what it is. Can't complain, man. I mean, I'm just excited to talk about basketball because there's so much going on in
No
the league right
doubt,
now.
no doubt. I think the perfect way to start this off is again, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, we lost a lot of that on my part because my dummy forgot like that my other mic wasn't recording and picking up for the actual video part, but Ruben was able to hear it through Discord, blah 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 blah. It's that thing on Ruben's hat, my guy. They just beat this team that's considered one of the top teams right now in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and yeah, just react to that win and you know, kind of this early season success and
Yeah,
what's to look forward to, I guess.
yeah. I'll speak on behalf of the Cavaliers first. I just want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they'll be better moving forward
No
if
doubt.
and when they get Jared Allen back in the lineup, right? But um, they still have that weakness at the three spot, right? Like we were talking about this last year. We talked about this going into the season. It was like they have the backcourt duo. They've got a great front court duo between Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And the question mark was always going to be who's at that three spot and who's going to be able to be that difference maker, whether it's on one end or the other, right? Like a guy like Karis LeVert was supposed to come into the season. He was going to be that, that offhand guy to be like, hey, if nobody can get a shot off, Karis LeVert's the kind of guy who can score the ball. And then he also put in an emphasis to defend this year. And then he's been coming off the bench, right? And so they've tried they've tried different looks. They've tried Lamar Stevens, they've tried Isaac Okoro, and against a team like Toronto, they just didn't look established. I just didn't think they looked very good. And a lot of that has to do with Toronto's defense, which I'll move into them now. As a really unbiased opinion, I think Toronto, aside from Milwaukee, I think, and probably Boston, Toronto's the one team that could throw several different looks at a team's offense. You can play big, right? You can choose to play small. What they did last night and what they've done the last two nights actually, or is it three? I can't remember. Well, against Dallas for sure, where they blitzed the pick and roll, and they did that several times against Cleveland last night. They did that against Luca and the Mavericks, where they blitzed the pick and roll. And more often than not, you know what happens, right? You blitz a pick and roll, you get the double team, and then there's someone who's wide open. But Toronto's long enough where they can recover
Oh, no
in a
doubt.
shell defense, right? So, I mean, I just think like Toronto also getting their guys back, right? It kind of just oftentimes you have this like next man up mentality. Well, when the guys come back, everybody starts to get pegged down, right? They go back into their roles. And I think when you have your best guys there, not only is it like affects your offense, right? Like you know who the guys are going to get their shots, you know you're going to have your offense, but also the defensive end too, right? Like OG Anunoby doesn't have to go out there playing 100% constantly, even though he is guarding the best player. He also doesn't have to worry about help side defense. He doesn't have to worry about crashing the paint and all that type of stuff when you've got all the other guys around, like Scotty back in the lineup and Pascal back in the lineup. So last night's win was really good. I think for Raptors fans, like you have to be really happy with what you saw from Pascal. You and I were talking about this offline. Like Pascal literally looked like he could drop 40 in the first 10 minutes.
Oh,
And
he was on a
like
heater for sure.
I'll let you react to it for sure, but it's like you would think last time that Siakam missed this much time was he actually had a groin injury in 2020, and that was before the bubble. And what happened that time literally was the exact same injury, but when Pascal came back, he didn't look the same, and that was one of the biggest concerns for sure. with this season, I mean, he's coming back missing what 2 3 weeks, and he looked just like the same old Pascal.
Oh, no
Um,
rust at all for sure. Yeah, no.
no rust.
Pascal was he. He got into I think that flow state that JJ and Steph were talking about in basketball, where everything's just kind of going
Yeah,
your way, every shot's falling, every cross is crossing. It was definitely kind of like that where Pascal was Pascal was a bad man. I don't think there's any other way to kind of put it. But not only that,
yeah,
I think I mean just a little sidebar. Both of our teams both just had pretty big statement wins against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's that's a little side. Oh, Jamil with the 245 bits. Appreciate you, bro. But not to get back to it. Uh, the Raptors, I think the Raptors and Bucks are two teams that I think are the teams that best match up. And you could definitely throw the Celtics in there where yes, the Cleveland Cavaliers undoubtedly have one of the best backcourts in the league, in the world, but you see the limit that 2 6-foot guards really puts on you. We've already seen that before with CJ and Dame, and now this is supposedly this new version, this new heightened version with Donovan and Garland. But yeah, no, the Raptors. I think even outside of the Pascal heater, it was the fact that it was a good, solid team when there wasn't one player with 30 and everybody had like 10 or 5. You saw nice balanced scoring from everybody. Fred was struggling a little bit in the first bit, but picked it up, was able to distribute the ball. Scotty came off the bench, did his thing. It's just I think the first time you guys have really been fully, actually not even fully healthy because obviously you have the minutes restriction with Pascal, but I think it's the first time you really saw like the full first team kind of get their thing off. And not even that. I think Delano Banton didn't play, right? Not that he's going to be like a super
he,
big part of the rotation, but he's another guy you
yeah,
can plug and play in there when you want to throw a different look where, let's say, maybe Freddie's like being a little bit of a defensive liability at that point. Delano Banton's obviously that nice big 6'9" new positionless basketball guard you can throw in, and then you can have that whole big lineup. And it's just the Raptors have all the tools I think to really throw a wrench and be one of those like they're like this. They're that March Madness team that everybody's not looking at, but have all the tools, all the withdrawal, all the know it all to take down
mhm.
like a Duke level team in that sense. Where obviously, like last year, you were saying they're playing with house money. I think it's somewhat of the same this year, where they're obviously not looked at in that upper echelon, but we can both agree. I think they're more than capable of getting to there for sure.
Yeah. The interesting part about that too is that like Toronto's always been a team that's been overlooked every year. I mean, when they
Hundred
had Kawhi and they
percent.
won the championship that year, they were overlooked, right? So it's not new to Raptors fans, and I think we're in a place now where we understand that every season we're gonna come in and be like, hey, you know what? Like the conversation doesn't revolve around the Raptors, and it never will. Just simply from a patriotic standpoint, there's like we have to be quite frank. Like a lot of even though that you know like Toronto, the Raptors have a lot of American players. Um, the simple fact is the team is not in the states, right? So
Yeah.
that genuine support isn't going to be there. From journalists that say things like, "Hey, obviously we have to be impartial and all that stuff," right? So,
There's always going to be a bit of
um,
that for sure.
yeah, exactly. The one last thing I wanted to drop about the Raptors is the fact that they started Thad Young and Juancho Hernan Gomez last night,
Hey
and
man,
um,
Bo Cruz was nice.
hey, he's balling. He's balling. I have to say, and the one thing that surprised me about him was actually his defensive awareness. Like, he's a guy that if you try to make a pass like cross court, or you're trying to get it out to the corner, like on a driving kick, like the simple play. He's a guy who's underratedly long and really good, like at reading the defense. And multiple times this year in games when he's played, is he picks off passing lanes really well, and it's like, oh shoot, Wancho got that pass. Okay, like not bad. And then when he's giving it to you on the other end, where he's really good at cutting off the ball, and I think that's why that Thad Young Wancho duo. Like I don't want to talk too much about this because obviously it's like, but if Raptors Twitter knows that those two have developed a really good chemistry over the last few games. And when Wancho is cutting and Thad's got the ball in the high post, that oftentimes is a bucket because like he's cutting and he's curling into the paint, and people just forget about Wancho because like obviously everyone thinks he's just Bo Cruz and he's a guy who's been around the league, right? But and he's hitting the three ball, so it's a really nice fit that starting lineup. Interesting though that Scotty didn't start, even though it looked like he could have played the whole game. So that's just an interesting thing to keep an eye out for because I wouldn't be mad at Scotty and Gary coming off the bench for the time being because the problem has been the bench's inconsistency despite Chris Boucher, who's been really good. And I think that I was a little disappointed in the way he played last night and or the lack of minutes that he got. So just an interesting thing to watch out for. But I know we got so much more hoops to talk about, man. Like there's so much on the docket. Like
Oh yeah, we could spend this entire podcast
you know
talking about these.
exactly.
But yeah, in terms of like I guess our little roadmap for today, we're gonna be discussing the logjam that's in the West. How good are the Celtics? Pretenders versus contenders, and a little talk about this upcoming like I think it's around Marchish where or February where is it the like trade deadline basically who could be buyers, sellers, and then this last one it's a little bit inspired, actually not a little bit, entirely inspired by the fact that it is the World Cup right now. You know, Canada got their first goal
Yeah.
even though they got thrashed, but we're gonna think about because the game is going into such a global thing, this kind of world versus USA teams that could go down. Because I don't know if you saw earlier, but Giannis was saying like they would smoke them. I'm not saying that I agree with that or disagree with it, but I think it's a very, very worthy conversation to have, and I think it's a nice little fun one we can have at the end. But let's head in talking about the West. I mean, the Warriors and Dallas Mavericks game just ended. Superb game, down to
Fun
the
game.
wire. Had a mid off. They both lost because they're both at 500 now, and
They had a mid off. Dude, that was as real as it
yeah,
could
had a
get. We
mid
got
off, and
Josh
then
Green hitting threes for you
oh
and
my gosh,
Jonathan Kaminga making plays down the stretch. Like that's a mid off as it gets.
100%. But even looking at the standings, Phoenix sits at the top at 14-6. You got Denver, New Orleans, Memphis, the Clippers, Portland. That makes up the play-in bracket. And then in like the play or the playoff bracket, in the play-in right
Yep.
now would be Sacramento, Utah, Dallas, Golden State, and that leaves I think two distinct teams that can make that jump in back into the play-in in Minnesota and maybe even the Lakers. I think the Thunder, as fun as they've been, you just really think, and I think that as great as Shea is playing, there's always that thought that they could kind of like, oh, Shea got a case of that Wemby.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they'll be out of it pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure. And another team that'll probably be out of is the Utah, which, but even then, to talk about that, let's talk about Minnesota. They're currently 10-11, and that puts them back 4.5 games from first, which obviously in like the first month or so is technically a lot. But in the grand scheme of the fact that we still got 50 plus games for each team to play, it's really, really not. And it's the fact that it's so tight that makes this like Western Conference such a big toss up this year. I don't think there's a team that's really, really asserted their dominance as much as like a Celtics or a Bucks. But uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's talk about because the Minnesota Timberwolves are an interesting topic. I think Cat just got announced that he's going to be missing the next few weeks. Get better, Cat. But
Yeah.
they're a team that really made this all in move and were able to get their big star of the show and Rudy Gobert, and hasn't been turning out too well. What do you think of the trade, first of all, Ruben? And not to say you can fix it, but what do you think is like the next few weeks looking like for them and heading towards like the future?
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of words to say about this team.
Yeah,
Uh,
get it out, man.
but you know what though? But me and you did talk about this at the start of the season. Was the biggest question mark was going to be fit. It was simply going to be fit, right? Like Rudy Gobert, you can typically plug in on any roster and you'll be good. Like we were talking about him having him on the Raptors potentially, him on the Atlanta Hawks, like how well he would work in a screen and roll situation with a guy like Trey Young. Um, but I guess the one team that we were like, I don't know if the fit is great necessarily, is literally the Timberwolves, right? And they went all in on getting Rudy, and I think they understood what their deficiencies were last year. Like what you would say, like last year defensively was their most inconsistent part of the game, right?
Yeah, they
Like
were. I think they were like the top offense last year, weren't they? With Chris Finch,
yeah, they
right?
were like
Yeah.
yeah, they were one of the yeah. But then on the defensive end was lack of consistency. I mean, D'Angelo Russell at the head of the snake is not a great defender. Anthony Edwards is still yet to be seen. I know we'll have a little bit of a conversation regarding him because he's not looking great, to be honest, this year. I will say, excuse me, Jaden McDaniels has had some really nice, solid moments this year.
No doubt.
But
Jalen Noel is like playing like a super solid bench
yeah,
option. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the team has pieces, the team has talent, and this is something we've known since last year, was they have talent. But like Charles Barkley said it, I think on one of the broadcasts, where he was like, "That team is dumber than rocks, right? Like that team is dumber than rocks." And adding a Rudy Gobert to that team, the biggest thing is fit. Like a guy like Cat is a guy who plays outside, but if you're going to congest the paint, that ruins a lot of offensive opportunities for him because if you congest the paint, then teams can load up on him on the outside, right? They can push him on the perimeter, and then they're going to force him to drive. Which in that case, it's not necessarily the best part of his game, and at the same time, he has no driving lanes because the paint is being clogged by Rudy Gobert. And so that's the problem. And like so when you have other guys like who aren't necessarily great three-point shooters on the squad, it's the fit offensively is not great. And I think what are their numbers something like this year? Like they're somewhere I think they're in the bottom third or the bottom half offensively this year.
Yeah, their
Like
numbers aren't good. They're 114.6 points per game, which is their offense, and they let up
yeah,
116, which is obviously one of like
yeah.
the worser
So
ones.
well they've got that's a -2, right?
Yeah.
Offensive defensive rating. And so I mean, you're looking at this team, right? And they have pieces. It's just fit. And so, quite frankly, just Cat and Rudy don't fit. And there's not a way that you can make that necessarily fit unless you have Cat play simply as a pylon on the outside and you play inside out. The problem is, and this is the thing, like a great example of a team that was with fit is remember the Orlando Magic back in 2009,
Oh,
right? Where
like
Dwight Howard, everything was
Hito,
throwing. Yeah,
Lewis. That was a solid team, man. That was a good team.
but that's the thing, right? You had an all-star forward like Rashard Lewis and Hito Turkoglu, like caliber players, right? I'm not saying these guys
Mhm.
were top, top-notch guys, so to speak, but you could throw the ball into Dwight and he could make stuff happen on the inside, and he was good enough to be able to kick it out. You can't do that with a guy like Rudy Gobert because he has no offense. He has no post up offense. And so when you ask a guy like Cat to sit on the outside and be a catch and shoot guy and then make secondary plays from three levels when the paint is congested, he's also a big guy, and then there's two other guys who require the ball in order for them to be successful, like D'Lo and Anthony Edwards. Like the fit is not there's nothing more we can say, right? Like the fit is really really awkward, and that's why their offense is taking a huge hit because when Cat was playing the five, you could spread the floor, you could run the paint in transition. He's often your trailer, and there's no one congesting the paint. When you had even a guy like Jared Vanderbilt in there, because he's a guy who could hit that shot every now and then. So I don't know what they're gonna do about the squad. I think it's worth looking into pulling a deal for. I think there are pieces there that don't necessarily fit, and I think I'm done. I would love to see this team figure it out, only because of the fact that I really am a big fan of Cat. I think as a person, at least publicly, what he's showed is he's a guy that I feel like deserves to win at some point and get his flowers because he is a great player. And just unfortunately, the team building around him hasn't been very good over the last few years. And I don't know. Like they went all in on Rudy. They mortgaged their whole future with those picks and those swaps and all those young guys. And I don't know what you're left with at that point, right? You're left with a mid
Yeah, I
team.
mean, I'll say it like this: it's definitely not to the same extent, but it just feels like it has the inklings of the ultimate finesse in NBA history with Danny Ainge and
Yeah,
trading the old Celtics for obviously guys like Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown would eventually develop into
Yeah.
this whole big thing. And I think the thing is that
Pulled
they,
it off again.
yeah,
He
they,
pulled it off
it was a
again.
little bit like Icarus, where they just got too damn close to the sun for their own damn good. They
Yeah.
obviously Minnesota's like a team that has a rich history of kind of screwing things up like this. KG is like the biggest like example of that. And now you're seeing the second coming of that with this cat and now Ant. And I think it's that again, they got a little too greedy and wanted to get a little too top heavy when really I think all this team really needed was time to mesh together. This is the first
Yeah.
time last year where this team was like solid. You had guys like Jared Vanderbilt, who I think is a team that he's in that echelon of the PJ Tuckers, the Josh Harts, the guys who are never gonna have like 20 and 10, but the way they hustle, the intangibles they have is worth so much more in that sense. And not only that, you had buckets like Malik Beasley, who's a solid microwave off your bench. Patrick Beverly, I think, was a big reason why they were able to be in the upper echelon of the Western Conference last year. And I think what they gained in top heavy value, I think they really lost in their culture. And you know, this is the price of it. And I think what they should have done is definitely, when you look at it, it was way too much value for Rudy. And even the pick that they traded away that would eventually become Walker Kessler. If you put him in, I'm not saying you start him, but I think you'd be able to stack it where you have minutes of Cat
Yeah.
playing the four. And I just
It's a
think
different
that,
look.
yeah, the way he plays, I understand that he wants to play like positionally as a four, but I just don't think he really has the foot speed to completely keep up with those kind of guys. And
Well,
I
not
think
at
you'd
this
probably
game
stack
anymore,
it.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
definitely, they're a team. I think I don't know if they can, but I hope they do figure it out for sure. I think even to talk about it, you said Anthony Edwards. He was this guy I think everybody had touted to take this next level. I mean, Patrick Beverly said it best. He think he can be better than MJ. And he was
mm,
supposed to kind of start to jump to that sort of level of stardom. But so far, it's just been really a lot of stagnation. We saw the last game where he like kind of kept them in with the Wizards. He had 28 or something along those lines, but obviously that kind of turned into a blowout. So
yeah.
I'm I'm interested to see how this period without Cat works, because now obviously a lot of, if not a majority of the offense falls into Anthony Edwards' hands. You know, Rudy's gonna not gonna give you anything offensively. D'Angelo Russell's way too inconsistent. Jalen McDaniels is a solid guy. He's like the bend don't break type. I think we're really gonna see Anthony Edwards start to pick it up a level, but it's times like these I think where you see this uptick in production, but it's when you start to implement all your pieces back together where I think you really start to get into like how they are now. I think they're on a 5-6 game losing streak right now. So it's interesting to see what the next few weeks is going to look like. But yeah, this is probably not even a hot take. I think there's undoubtedly, next to like the Celtics trade, in a few years this could be looked at as the worst trade in NBA history, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like, I think we knew that we talked about this. We knew this. Like, a guy you mortgage your future for is Donovan Mitchell in this case, if you're looking
Mm.
at that Utah Jazz
It's
roster. That's who
It's
you
Kevin
mortgage your
Durant.
future for. It's a Kevin Durant. Because even though Kevin Durant at 32, 33, he's got 4 years left on his contract. And with his style of play, he's still going to be able to keep up that kind of production, at least for the next 2, 3 years. A guy like Donovan Mitchell, who's still a really young player and has a lot of years left in this league. And you know that his ability to grow, and he's dynamic offensively, and that changes the whole lot for your team. Because at the end of the day, we can say what we want about everything else. If you can't score the ball, if you don't have a guy who can score at all three levels, your team's not going to get very far. A guy like Rudy Gobert is generationally is a generational defender, right? We know this. Like, he's won multiple defensive players of the year. He's been an impact player on the defensive end. He's actually not bad at offensively when it comes to the screen and roll. The problem is he hasn't been in a good fit for him to be able to showcase that consistently because we're talking about Utah when Donovan Mitchell has the ball in his hands 100% of the time. Um, he's never been a guy to see those kind of looks, right? And he still doesn't do that here in Cleveland, and what I noticed. And then you look on the other end of you know, Rudy Gobert being here in Minnesota now. A guy like D'Angelo Russell is actually great for him. But the problem is the fit isn't great around that, right? Necessarily, where a guy like Anthony Edwards isn't this tip top shooter. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of his percentages are down this year. And everything else around built around this team, right? It's just the fit isn't great where they can congest the paint against a guy like Rudy Gobert. So the threat of that pick and roll is like it's just it's negated. So you were talking about it'll be interesting to see what Anthony Edwards looks like with this team now as the primary scorer. I mean, him coming into camp like out of shape, not looking very good. It didn't seem like he had bought in. It didn't look like he took another step forward in his progression this year, and that's a huge issue if you're talking about a guy who's coming into his third year. I mean, oftentimes that third year is where you say, okay, this guy's going to break through, really break through, because that's when you start to separate yourself from the pack as an NBA player or an NBA star. And
I
Edwards has
like
not
that.
gone
Yeah.
on to a good start, right? Like, and so we have to see. I think this is going to be a really good stretch for him to really showcase that, okay, hey, I am that kind of guy, and just I'm not in a place where the fit is great. But it'll be great to see him get others involved too, because that's the next progression part of this game. Because everyone knows that Edwards can score, it's whether or not he can facilitate and get others involved. And that's always the next step for every great player. It's always been the next step for a guy like LeBron James. It's always been a great step, a big step for a guy like Giannis, for a guy like who haven't naturally come into the league and been like, oh, that guy's a natural playmaker. Like he's always looking to pass the ball, right? It's the simple things for a guy like Kevin Durant. Like we know these guys can score, but can they do all the other stuff that'll impact your team's winning? And so if he can get other guys involved, if he can make a guy like Rudy Gobert useful on the offensive end, right? If he can draw attention to him offensively and be able to make the right play, I think that's the next step in his progression. At the very least, if he can't pick up the rest of the other stuff that you don't have when Cat is around. But like you, DJ, like I want to see this team succeed, but at the same time, like this is also damage that they've done to themselves. And I think like the first, what is it, 21 games that they played, like it's a clear it's a clear indicator that team's fit is wonky. And so there's got to be some sort of drastic change in order for them to get into that, to be good enough, to be a solid team.
100%. Let's shift from one of the biggest dumpster fires to one I think the greatest feel good stories of this season. It is the Sacramento Kings. It's they're what's it called? They're 10-9 right now, so a little bit of a fall from grace, but Mike Brown's got them boys hooping. I mean, I don't know if we talked. No, we definitely did. I thought they had one of the most underrated off seasons of this entire out of the entire NBA. You know, no big sexy names to name for sure, but Kevin Herter I think is a guy that's in like, well, I don't think he'll win it. He's definitely in the running for like something like an MIP. Malik Monk is looking like a demon. They just have a lot of guys that fit their two stars. I think they've really been able to really create a nice solid nucleus in a Sacramento for sure.
Yeah, I like what they've done so far. I mean, the only thing that'll always stick with me is the fact that you trade a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, right? Like
No doubt.
that's a franchise player, and I mean, you're seeing the fruits of his labor in Indiana, where they currently sit fourth in the Eastern Conference, right? And the
Yeah,
team that
leading
everyone
the
thought
league
was
in
going to be
assists.
taking. Yeah, he's been a star, and like at the end of the day, I understand that Sacramento needed to make kind of a win now play, which they did, and it looks like it's paying off a little bit. Are they good enough to make the playoffs? Yes. Will they make any noise? Probably not. But I mean, I think that's fair enough for Sacramento fans to be like, oh, like we're gonna get
Yeah,
a good
there's
enough team.
there's there's a thing working
Yeah,
there. I will say though, Chris and I made a little side bet because here's my thing. I'm a big believer in what Sacramento's doing, but I think they're a year early, low key, because here's how I think it's gonna play out. I think they're gonna make the play in, but I think you saw it in the Phoenix game where I think it's these big moments where they're able to somewhat keep their head above water, but evidently the moment starts to drown them out a little bit. And I think, you know, game on the line, would you really trust someone like De'Aaron Fox, like with a three? He's no doubt he's improved it for sure, but I think that it's a little. I'm still a little shaky about that, especially if you consider it against, say, if we look at it now. Okay, 7-8 Utah for sure. Sacramento has a chance to win there, but on the off chance they lose, if they have Dallas or Golden State, I'm taking either of those guys to win that match. But I think for sure the future is bright. But I just think that when it comes to, like, again, these big moments when shit gets real, I just think it might be a little too big for them at that point. But this is all just to say next year, not to say that they'll drop to. Well, obviously if they don't make it, they'll be in the lottery. But I think being able to add another solid piece and I think another solid shooter is the thing that'll really take them from like this middle of the pack kind of Indiana Pacers vibes where we're not in the upper echelon but we're not tanking to really starting to grow into not maybe necessarily the next force in the West, but definitely one of those top tier teams. I think for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with the 1 year too early kind of thing. I mean, they have a lot of good young pieces, and again, I think it's just reps in the winning moments, like you said. Once they're exposed to that a little more, I think they'll start to get used to that. Because I mean, you pose that question like, do you trust De'Aaron Fox with the three? I mean, can you trust De'Aaron Fox in those moments? Period. Because they haven't found themselves in those situations very often over the course of his career thus far. So he's unproven still, right? In the sense that even though he's been in the league for a while and he's proven to be a really good player, and I will say I think De'Aaron Fox very much deserves All Star berth
No doubt,
consideration.
no doubt.
He's
He's
been he's
taking Chris
been
Paul's spot.
incredible. He's been incredible this year. Like De'Aaron Fox has been so good this year. Like there's no way that he should miss an All Star game this year. Um, but with that being said, again, he's unproven when the time matters most. And so it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses, if they're actually winning, and they're actually like competing for a play-in and playoff spot. Like it'll be interesting to see how they fare in those moments because that'll make or break like you whether or not you being a pretender or contender, right? And I know we're going to talk about that, but that's a very simple factor.
100%. Yeah, I think those are two teams I just want to like give a specific light on. Or actually, before that though, let's talk about a team that you were very high on, a team that just exited the 2022 mid off. It's the Dallas Mavericks. Not necessarily how they're looking
Yeah.
right now, but they made two solid additions today, or maybe not today, but Kemba Walker. What's your opinions on that? I'll tackle the second thing, but I just want to hear your opinions on the addition of the New York
You know what?
Knicks.
I think it's a really nice fit simply because of the fact that, um, well, I mean, if we're gonna do a direct comparison to Jalen Brunson, the comparison's not fair. Jalen Brunson is an all-star level guard at this point, and the way he's playing with New York. But what was so good about Jalen Brunson was that he could alleviate so much of the playmaking ability that when Luka didn't have the ball, and you're seeing it like we saw it like these last two games, right? We saw it again. I really want to touch base on this. Golden State and Toronto did it most of the game, and Golden State did it in the clutch moments when they stopped going from single coverage. Is once they blitz that pick and roll, oftentimes that first pass was either to Jalen Brunson or Dinwiddie. And what's happening right now is when Dinwiddie has that ball, they're often rotating, and so he has to give that ball up. And there was a play in the Toronto game that I want to bring up specifically where um, Luca got I think he got doubled, and then he had to give it up. And if I remember correctly, it was to Kleber, and then Kleber I think gave it up to Fetty Smith. I think he shaded right. I'm probably getting this completely wrong, completely wrong. But either way, the first pass out of the double wasn't to a guy who naturally always has the ball in his hands, where it would typically have been a Jalen Brunson, right? Because oftentimes what they try to do in those situations is they try to get the matchup. So Jalen Brunson would often set that screen. They try to get Jalen Brunson's man on Luka, but in that case, they would most of the time blitz to get the ball out of his hands. That ball has to reverse. It goes into Jalen Brunson's hand. And the beauty about Jalen Brunson is he can make a play, right? And that's why he was so highly touted by New York and all these other teams. But this time around, he's giving it up to Maxi Kleber and Dorian Finney-Smith and Tim Hardaway. And to some extent, you can give it to Dinwiddie, but he hasn't. He's not necessarily the same player as a Jalen Brunson, where he's a natural playmaker, right? And so in this case, like the problem with their team is they really lack that guy who can come in and be like, "Hey, Luca, take a rest. I can worry about the facilitating part, and you just worry about being a decoy on offense." And to some parts of that, we were saying earlier this year, Christian Wood was supposed to be that guy,
Now
right?
he's like
But
not
it's
getting like a steady like slate of minutes.
no, he's not. And it seems like he's just plugged to be a pylon, to be a 3-point threat. And while his shooting numbers have been solid this year with Dallas, the beauty about Christian Wood's game is that he actually is a three-level scorer for his size, right? And he's a guy that can handle the rock, and he's a guy that can create for himself. And it just doesn't feel like he's in a situation where like he's being put in that position to be successful. So again, I think like the similar thing with Minnesota is Luka's having it like the fit's not great outside of Luka because Luka has to handle everything. But when they double him and get the ball out of his hands, when it's not to make the right play necessarily, it's just forcing the ball out of his hands, and they're making that 4-on-3 situation happen. Can those four guys create a basketball play against an uneven defense? And like thus far, that's the reason why the record is 10-10 because like simply Luke is winning games for them, and then when they're losing games, they're guys who need to be there, like the teammates have not played well, or they have not been by the help that Luca necessarily needs. Um, I compare this time of Luca's career to James Harden's MVP years. Very similar in
That's
the
what
sense
everybody's
where,
saying. Yeah, no, I see the
yeah,
comparison.
it's dribble, 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 right? Get a shot out. Like Charles Barkley said, dribble, 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 right? And when teams doubled, he always made the right pass. But that right pass was often to a guy like Chris Paul or a guy who could make a shot right on the catch. And guys were positioned so well where they were able to make the correct basketball play every single time. A guy like PG Tucker, who's so well known for being that catch and shoot kind of guy, and you don't have a lot of that in Dallas, right? And so you want to play that style play, but if your pieces just aren't set up for that kind of play, like for that kind of basketball, it's you can do as much as you want. You can have the best talent. They literally, I think, Luka's having as good of an NBA season as I've seen in a really long time. But like they're just not maximizing the potential for him with the pieces around. They just and or like I hate to say it, I just don't feel like Jason Kidd is doing a very good job this year either. Right? I think a lot of his adjustments have been pretty piss poor. Watching the Toronto game too, like I think there's a lot of coaching things that could have happened in that game, and even in the Warriors game that we just watched. So I'll leave it at that. I think
Yeah, no, Kemba.
Dallas
I
is
think
as
it's
good as it
definitely
gets.
Kemba's. He's gonna add some spunk to the offense for sure. I think he's gonna make it so that it's not so heliocentric. And I'm not saying that he's gonna replace the production that Jalen Brunson. Because yeah, I don't think it's fair to really put that kind of label on him because he's what 33 now. So I think that Kemba's for sure gonna again. He's gonna make it so that the offense isn't so predictable in that sense. Because you're right. Luca's either gonna take 6 dribbles and kick it out, and the next guy's gonna shoot,
Yeah,
or Luca's gonna settle for some bullshit. Kemba's gonna, I think, alleviate some of that. But the other guy we go talk about, Jaded Hardy, whew,
yeah, he's back. That's
I don't
nice.
think he's gonna come in and obviously average 20. Definitely not that. But dude's a bucket. This is a dude
Yeah,
that is is able to get his shot off, able to create at multiple levels. I think the only thing I don't like is that a lot of his offense is similar to Luca in that it comes at the top of the key where he's kind of the main initiator. So it's definitely going to be hard to have that adjustment to kind of going to off ball. But I just think it's going to be a good look for the Mavs to have it so that it's not so much only one guy on the floor can really take you off the dribble and create his own shot, and everybody else can only really catch and shoot. I think that again, that makes it so that your offense isn't so predictable, isn't so able to like gamble on those like double teams and stuff like that. So it's going to be great to see for sure. I think. Is it going to propel them into? Because what did you say they were going to like potentially make a finals run?
I genuinely thought so. I genuinely thought so, and I still feel like they're a team that can make a deep run. I think they have the pieces. I just don't know if they're being put in the right position to be
Yeah,
successful in again.
it's definitely not as dire as the
Yeah.
Minnesota situation for sure. But I think yeah, there is a little bit of tinkering that needs to be done, and I think Jason Kidd is capable of it. But we're just gonna have to see. I think for sure. All right,
Yeah.
now let's head into. We'll kind of loop these two together. Pretender versus contender. I'll just list the teams off. Hate to do this to you, Ruben. The Clippers.
Are they a pretender or a contender?
Yeah,
Is that what we're asking?
yeah.
Oh, they're contender. They're a contender for sure for me. I think to be 12-9 and fifth in the Western Conference where they currently are, considering the injuries that they faced, I will say they're a contender. And if they are fully healthy, and I think they will get Kawhi back at some point consistently, I think um, I think they'll be fine. Like there's too much depth and talent on that team for them to be washed off as a pretender.
No doubt, no doubt. I guess I'll handle this next thing. The Pelicans. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I said it on the pod, but I had a feeling that if everything were to go right, if the suns aligned and the
You said
moon was
that.
clear, the
You said that.
Pelicans, yeah, the Pelicans I think could be in that upper echelon. They're only 2 games back from Phoenix. And to think that they're missing out on BI right now, CJ hasn't played in a bit, and again, like you said, they're still afloat. I think it speaks volume to their depth. And New Orleans, I think the only thing, if you replace Valanciunas with a guy like Miles Turner, that's probably one of, if not the best starting fives in the league for sure. I think that's kind of the only big hole right now. You know, the
Yeah,
1 through 4, solid as they come. But it's
it's too
just the
bad he's
fact
had a
that
bad.
yeah, and you and I are both big Jonas Valanciunas fan. No doubt he's a top 10 center. But I think it's similar to the Rudy thing where there's just not the fit. And I'm not gonna lie, trade for Miles Turner. I don't know how you do it, but you just gotta figure out some way to do it. So I think the Pelicans are for sure. They're a legit team. They have the ability to I think make a deep run this year. We saw last year they almost shocked the world as like the last 1/8 seed since what was the last one, the We Believe team,
Yeah, that'd be Dallas.
or was it? Oh well, I guess you can count the Bulls, but that doesn't really count because D Rose's knee blew out before that. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
they could have been in that history book with them. And let's head on to this next team, Denver.
So, oh man, Denver's a tough one for me, but I will lean contender still.
I do
I will
too,
still
but
lean
I
contender.
think it's a year early. I think next year when Jamal Murray's like fully kind of back, low key. He's already like I think he had a solid game the other night, so he's trending in the right direction. But
The reason I agree with that is not only because of the fact that Murray's still coming back, but I still think they are a year away from just having. I think they're still missing a piece to me. They're still missing a piece to me, and they have the MVP of the league. They've got Jamal Murray. Like when he's healthy, he's an all-star caliber guard. They have two-way wings and KCP and Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon. Um, but I don't know what it is. I think they're still missing a piece. I think a guy like Bones Highland, like when we look at the Warriors, a guy like Jordan Poole is so huge to their success,
Yeah,
right?
I think Bones can develop into that guy, and he's the guy I thought would take that big step this year.
And he
And
hasn't.
yeah, he has not so far. I
That's
still
what I'm
think he
saying.
could, but
Yeah.
I get what you mean. They're definitely missing. They're missing a little spunk off their bench. I think they have a do-it-all guy with somebody like Christian Braun, somebody that's able to do a bit of the gritty work.
Who?
Christian
Sorry.
Braun, man,
I just had
national
to. I know who
champion.
he is, but I'm just saying who?
100%. Nah, he's not a household name yet, but he's a fire hydrant for sure. But no, I think they're just missing that shot creation and that real
Yeah.
kind of Lou Williams esque player off
It was
the
supposed
bench.
to be Aaron Gordon. I mean, Aaron Gordon was a 20-point per game scorer in Orlando,
Yeah, but now
and
I think he's in
you
the
know,
perfect situation where you don't necessarily need that from him. And we've seen this Denver team still be solidly competitive
yeah,
with him being as like the second option last year. Took a game off the Warriors who eventually won the chip, so that counts for something. But yeah, no, I think the bench still needs a little bit of work, but they're definitely on the right track, no doubt.
yeah,
But I just think
100%.
next year is probably a better year because again, you get Jamal Murray back a little bit more healthy. You hope that Michael Porter Jr.'s back holds up from all the shots he's taking, all the shots to his back. Could call them back shots, you know.
Back shots, back shots, back shots, back shots.
But yeah, no, when you have a guy like Nikola Jokic, you're automatically, I think, there's always a chance. Not if it's a
Yeah.
really good chance or a shit chance, but there's a chance for sure. All right, next team, Brooklyn. I'm not gonna
Contender.
lie, pretender. I think they're gonna be pretending to be contending to the point where they contend. Nah, but is Ben
Ooh.
Simmons back? That's a
I
question.
would like to see. I would like to say he looks good.
Yeah,
He's
for
been
sure.
looking
These
good.
past few games have been really great to see. It shows why he was drafted as high as he was. It shows why he was one of like a guy to garner comparisons to Giannis. Not he's obviously not going to get to that now anytime soon at least. But I think we're really starting to see is that this team fully healthy with Yuta Watanabe being the best shooter in the league right now. It might be a little hard to beat, but I
Raptors will
agree.
fumble the bag, man.
Hey, what's your favorite moment of Yuta Watanabe in a Raptors jersey? Was it him getting dunked on? Because that's probably all you remember. Yeah,
Got dunked
see?
on twice actually. He got dunked on twice though as a Raptor. He had
Yeah,
a really nice play last year that I can't remember, but Utah, we love you. Yeah, whatever.
yeah. Not
You
only
fumbled the
that,
bag, but
but
I'm glad to see
we
him
saw
having a good time
Brooklyn.
in
They're about to
Brooklyn.
get. I think T.J. Warren's supposed to make his. We're about to see one of two guys who hasn't played NBA basketball since the bubble, and T.J. Warren. And
Yeah.
last time there, he looked like Michael Jordan. He's obviously not going to get to that level, but you're seeing this team start to get a little bit more healthy, and I think that's the thing with Brooklyn, where again on paper, undoubtedly one of the most talented teams in the league, but through the
Facts.
dumpster fire, whether it be the PR, everything in tandem together, hasn't shaped out to be a good year so far. But when you look at the adjustments they made, Jock Vaughn looks like he's really got a hold of that locker room, and a lot of them have started to buy in. KD's starting to take an uptick defensively. Kyrie's like starting to, I think, take a good enough step back to where it's not so like too many chefs in the kitchen in a sense. Seth Curry's starting to get back. I think that all the things are looking up for them. It's just a matter if that actually translates. So for now, I'll say pro contenders, but probably leaning more pretenders. I think they're not getting swept this year for sure if they make the playoffs. I'll say that. I think that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
But all right, is there any? Oh yeah. Let's talk about this team.
Oh, I do. Okay, maybe I'll
Oh,
throw one out for right
all
now for
right, go
both of
ahead.
us. We talk so much junk about this team to start the season, yet they sit number one in the Western Conference.
The
Phoenix
Phoenix
Suns,
Suns.
pretender, contender.
Pretenders, but I don't give a fuck if they go undefeated for the rest of the year. Do it in the playoffs. It don't matter. Nah, but to keep it a
Yo,
stack,
clip that. Somebody clip that.
100%. They could go undefeated. They still go lose. No, but
Bro.
I think they're a piece away for sure. I think they just need somebody to
Yeah.
really
They're Jay
shore up
Crowder away.
the bench. Fuck Jay Crowder, man.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
That's
And the
hilarious.
resident Suns fan is in here. Gabriel, what is up, my brother? Listen, man. The
Oh,
Suns.
dude.
There's a player they need. Yo, think about it like this. If they could somehow get Jordan Clarkson, that team would be so nice.
Oh, that's a good
That team
pickup.
would be so
Yeah.
solid. That team would be mwah. But
Well, I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be sold at the deadline.
for
If
sure, that
I'm.
we're going to talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
later. I mean, Jordan Clarkson to Phoenix, I think would be the perfect situation where campaign is going to get, obviously, he's solid as like a solid, backup. Torrey Craig is looking until Giannis blasts him. But I think Cam Johnson's supposed to come back potentially this year too, right? Because I know he tore it,
Yeah,
but
he's supposed to be back this year.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
So
supposed. I mean, like,
I
it's
think it's
not
a
gonna
matter of
be
getting
anytime soon.
healthy. Yeah, DeAndre Ayton is looking like he's taking that next step. We prayed some power forward spot is looking dicey, but we made it work. Yeah, no, for sure. I think for all the bits and pieces of turmoil that have befell the Phoenix Suns, they've, I think, been able to bounce back. That's evidenced by the fact that they're the top of the mountain right now when it comes to the West. But there just really isn't that depth you need. When Dwayne Washington Jr. is like playing solid, you know that it's cool and all, but come on, it's Dwayne Washington Jr., man. When Damian Lee's hitting 3 threes for you, it's cool and all, but it's Damian Lee. You know, I think that they're definitely a team that needs to make some moves. They're a team that I think are going to make moves, but as of now, I'm sorry I gotta say it. Pretenders. They got an old man at their point. They got potentially disgruntled center. I don't even know. Uh, there's just so
You
much.
know,
They're
I
the
can't
biggest
say
wild card.
disgruntled thing works though.
Actually, yeah. I mean, he looks like he's bought in a little bit now, but you
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
just a lot. There's a lot that
I'm on the
needs to go
pretender
right
side.
for Phoenix to I think get that first chip. They need Chris
Yeah,
Paul to be healthy first of all, and I can't think of the last time that was a thing. DB's looking solid for
he's
sure.
balling out. He's balling
DB
out.
is he's like top 10 in the MVP if I had to say. Mikal Bridge is as solid as they come.
He's
They
having a
have
good
all
year.
the
He's
tools.
having a
Yeah,
great year.
Mikal
Calbridge
Bridges
is
is
having a
that
great year.
guy. They have all the tools to really, really succeed. I think it's just a matter if they fumble the bag or not this year, which they
Facts.
probably will.
Oh, man.
All right. Next up, let's do one more. I think. Yeah, we'll talk about this team, Atlanta.
Oh, pretender. It's not even a question. Dude, DeJounte Murray is having a terrible year.
Oh my
And
gosh.
well, I mean, like okay, like well, okay, in context with the year he had last year, like DeJounte, it just seems like he went from San Antonio. Everybody loves DeJounte. What a great dude, triple double guy, humble superstar.
Now
And he
he's
goes to
like
Atlanta.
he's the villain.
Yeah, and I don't know what it
That's
is,
what
but I
happens
don't
when
like
you go
this.
to Atlanta.
Yeah, bro, he's been spending way too much time in Magic City, bro.
Hey man, the wings though. I heard the wings be hitting. No,
Yeah, he
but
did the legs and the thighs, right?
hey, true. Talking about the Hawks though, there is one guy that I'm really really holding on for. It's I think their guy AJ Griffin.
Yeah,
AJ Griffin is mwah. I
hit
think
the game winner against his daddy.
oh yeah. Oh true. For
Yeah,
real daddy too.
that was
And
tough.
became his daddy. Nah, but AJ Griffin I think
What
is a
the
guy that
frick? Clip
perfectly
that.
perfectly fits into that situation. I think what you're really missing from that Hawks team is just a knockdown shooter. You know, DeJounte can kind of shoot it. Trey can kind of shoot it. John Collins kind of shoot it. AJ Griffin, he got that thing on him though, man. He keeps strapped at Atlanta, but they have again they're a team that has all the tools to really make noise, but I think it's just similar to the Nuggets where you have this solid piece, but you're still maybe a year away from like really getting it together. And who knows? Depends on what they can get back for John Collins, given that he's on the market now. I think they're 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 definitely in a wild card kind of situation. But I think you're right. That I lean more towards pretenders for sure.
Yeah, I think that was always the situation with that team was like outside of DeJounte and Trey and Capella, it was always going to be the question mark of if John Collins is going to be that guy who can step in and be like that glue player, right? Like that really important glue guy that every contending team has. Um, but it just seems like he reminds me, and we said this before, and I remember I can't remember who it was, but Atlanta, everybody knows about this guy who played power forward, who had all-star potential, but was always involved in trade talks every single season, and his name was Josh Smith. He's a dunk guy, he could create a shot, and he could never really get over the hump when it came to his progression as a player. And John Collins is sitting in the exact same spot that Josh Smith happened to sit in when he was with the Hawks too. And so his career, whether he stays in Atlanta or goes somewhere else, will either go like the stonks are gonna go, or he's just gonna drop, and his career is gonna take a huge plummet. And a change of environment, I think, is what's needed for him, and or their system has to change, and he has to be much more involved because honestly, I think John Collins is a guy that would fit in any NBA roster, but it just doesn't seem like in Atlanta that he's ever been. It seems like he's been an afterthought always when it comes to the focus of a team. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress forward because I thought he was going to be such an important piece. We thought he was going to be
I thought he was
like a
gonna go back to
beneficiary.
like 15-10.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought he was going to be a beneficiary to DeJounte. I mean, the biggest problem is at the end of the day, regardless if you got DeJounte or not Trey Young, that's still his team.
No doubt.
So, it is what it is.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Sellers versus buyers. I guess we'll throw out some teams here. Indiana Pacers. What you thinking, Rube?
I think they're going to sell, only because of the fact that I think they know that um, they have a lot of assets that I just think you have to capitalize on, and the teams are going to be paying for at the deadline. Like Buddy Hield is going to be a guy that every team will want come February, and 100% they're going to get some really good value for him, especially with the way he's been playing with Indiana, right? Like he's been balling, and that opens up more opportunities for their guys like Benedict Mathurin and Nembhard, who just are Canadian boys.
Yes,
Nembhard just
sir.
hit a game winner against the Lakers, right? And he was playing awesome in that game. So, I mean, you really got to think about the future as much as they are winning right now. And it seems like what they're doing is at a very similar stage where the Raptors are at right now, where they're trying to develop their talent, but at the same time, try to be competitive. But when you have an asset like Buddy Hield, who's been helping and contributing to the team being competitive, but when you have an asset like him where you could potentially get a pick back and continue to build on your future assets, like I don't know how you can pass that up. So I think they're very much going to be sellers come deadline time.
Would you sell Miles Turner too, or you think he's like a little within the timeline a little?
I think he's within the timeline. I mean, he's 26 years old if I'm not mistaken,
I think the only
right?
thing with him though is that he's also on the last year of the contract, and he's probably a guy that's gonna want top dollar because given his skill set, I think he deserves that for sure. But
So why wouldn't you pay him
true,
that then?
but I think the thing is that they also have guys like Isaiah Jackson, where I'm not saying that he's gonna grow into that Miles Turner, but when you have guys like Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and you think about how deep draft classes are now, especially this one up and coming, I think that if you're the Pacers and based on how the Pacers are, you probably would sell on both. I agree that they should probably keep at least Miles, but at the potential return, I think I'd sell both.
That's the thing though, because of the fact that Miles Turner is in the last year of his contract, they're not going to get that same return that they would have had if they sold him at in the summertime. Simply because of the fact that he can just walk at the end of the year, right? Regardless of
True.
what team trades for him. And so if a team trades for him for this one rental, they lose their asset, they mortgage their future a little bit for a little run at Miles Turner. And in the end, they can't pay him. If you're looking at a team like Toronto, if they were to make a run at Miles Turner, great fit, but he could easily leave because they might not have salary capital to be able to afford a guy like him moving forward, considering they have to think about the futures of Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., unless their guys dealt for Miles Turner. So I don't know. Miles Turner is a tough one for me because I know we so often talk about draft picks and young players, and the league is going in a route of, if you're past 30 years old, you're past your prime or you're no longer part of the timeline. But Miles Turner is such a proven commodity in the league that you plug him on any of the 30 rosters right now and he's going to be a competitive contributor. And so
No
I
doubt.
think you just have to stick with a guy like Turner. Buddy Hield's a bit different because of the fact that I think you've already got a Benedict Mathurin, you've already got a Chris Duarte, you've already got a Nembard. So I think you just buy into invest in those guys more, and get your value back that you can get for Healed versus Turner's a tough guy to replicate across the league. I don't know if there are very many bigs like him.
No, that's why he's the guy. Yeah, no, for sure. Uh, the Hornets.
Hmm. I don't know what the hell they are this year. I don't know what the hell they are this
Yeah,
year.
because they're
Uh,
another team you haven't really seen their top team top tier first team kind of run, because obviously Lamelo's been injured, Gordon Hayward's injured again. It's just a lot of like uncertainty. I think it was the wrong move to fire James Borrego. There's just
mhm.
a lot of question marks in there. Michael Jordan looked like the team was getting a bit on track, but shit the bed again. But I think Sellers personally, you have an asset like Terry Rozier, who I think will get you a solid return. The way Kelly Oubre's playing could get you some solid return. There's just a lot of guys that I think they should sell. James Booknight being one of them, which was, man,
His
I
book
don't know
night.
what I was. I thought
You were
I
on
said he was gonna
something.
be six man. Holy, was I wrong? Oh my goodness. Oh
Dude,
my lord. He's a
he is
bum.
pure doo doo.
He's actually so cheeks.
Oh
So
god.
cheeks.
Didn't he show, apparently, like, wasn't he like arrested because he had a gun in his lap or something like
Yeah,
that?
earlier in the year. Oh my
That was some
lord.
crazy stuff. This
The
dude's
Charlotte
trash. Get him
PR
off.
department's got a whole bunch of fires to
Yeah,
put out.
dude.
Nah, but
Yeah. Oh,
when you have a guy like Lamelo, which I'm not gonna lie, come on Lamelo, he ice up the ankle, baby, ice up, because he was like my number
yeah.
one pick in one of my fantasy leagues, man. But
Who's your number one pick?
yeah, because I think we were 8 man and I was like the seventh pick, so my choices were a little sparse. But when you have a guy like Lamelo, your window to kind of, I don't want to say entice him to stay, because obviously you have restricted free agency, but I think the long term window to stay is something that you really really have to capitalize within a young players, like before they sign that extension. And what I mean by that is that you got to show them that there's some hope in this roster, not only for now, but in the future. You know, that's why you have like young assets. That's why you have all these young pieces. When you look at the Charlotte Hornets, ain't a lot of that around. PJ Washington's a guy that I think is solid, but he's not a needle mover. Kelly Oubre, same thing. Terry Rozier,
Mm.
he's definitely a needle mover, but just a little bit out of the timeline of when this team has its best chance to be its most successful. So if I were them, I would sell the farm. Because if you think about it,
Yeah,
Wembanyama
I'd sell the
and
too.
Ball, whoo!
Yeah, yeah.
And not only
That's
that,
different kind of unicorn stuff right there.
100%. They should have gotten Bull, man. Man was just sitting in free agency, just chilling. Now he's looking like a top tier player. And
Yeah, he is.
I think that the Hornets have all the potential when you have a guy like LaMelo who has again all the potential to grow into like that next top tier player. But The way it's looking right now, if I'm Lamelo, I'm I might be dipping soon, kind of thing,
Yeah. I mean, there was some of that narrative last year,
for sure,
right? Like if they weren't going to put a winning team around him, so we'll see where that goes.
no doubt. Mm, take this. We'll talk about this team, and then we'll head into like a nice little juicy section I got planned for us because it's not the Jazz because I think obviously the way they were up here right now,
Oh, they're going to be selling.
yeah, for sure. So let's talk about this next team, the Chicago Bulls.
Gee.
Yeah, this is a dicey one
Gee.
because obviously you have this nice little core. You got DeMar DeRozan, Compton, Chicago or not Chicago. Oh, obviously Chicago, but Toronto's finest, Compton's finest. Overall, one of the best players in the league, not only as a player but as a person. Zach LaVine, probably the most athletic guard we've ever seen. Lonzo Ball, pray he gets well soon, but one of the better defenders. There's just a lot of good things about this team, but the way they're meshing together, the way it's playing out, I hate to say it, but I think they should be sellers. I think that you've seen how far this team can get together, and it's a first round exit to the Milwaukee Bucks. It's not so high to the point where there's hope. I think because the one game they did get against the Bucks, it was kind of like they the Bucks kind of let their foot off the gas a bit rather than like them getting one off of them. And not only that, it was the game where man, it's the last time Chris Middleton played basketball. Looking up because he's practicing in the G, but yeah, I think the Bulls they've made, even though it's only a year, so I think that would be the reason why they wouldn't be sellers, just because even though we can say we think we've seen the peak of this team, they're not willing to probably like be susceptible to that yet. So I don't think it would happen, but they should be sellers in my opinion. I think DeMar is still a top tier player, but with every year going by, you got to think about how much is that going to dwindle by, which I don't think will be super like a lot because he's one of those guys where his game's really dependent on skill rather than like supreme athletic ability. But you've got these valuable pieces like Kobe White should have been like traded yesterday. You got Alex Caruso, who I think you could probably get some really solid return for. You just have all these pieces to where you could set yourself up to look solid for the next 5 years rather than for the next year or two. I feel.
I think they got to be both.
But we've seen with the Warriors that don't really work. But I see where you're coming from. Yeah, they should sell on some of their pieces, and
That's why, because like you can't extend Zach LaVine in the summer and say you're gonna sell. This core has got a window, and I think they have to fully invest into the window that they have between Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and then hopefully Pat Williams pans out. Hopefully Lonzo Ball comes back healthy because if we look back to last season when he was healthy, he was the engine that made this team tick, that made this team the number one team in the East for a good period of time. Where DeMar DeRozan looked like like he was a superstar. I mean, he is a superstar, but it is much easier for him to be a star when he's not the main facilitator on the team, right? On the squad. Ayo Dosunmu's a really nice piece, but he's not there yet, right? And he's not a guy that you can plug and play and be like, "Oh, right, this is a contending team." So hopefully Lonzo Ball comes back healthy. I think where they're going to be sellers is Kobe White. I think he's going to be a player that a lot of teams are going to be looking forward to during the deadline. And I think they're going to leverage him as a piece to try and get better and try to get depth pieces. They need another wing who can guard both ends, who can guard one end and contribute it on the other end. Because Pat Williams, while he looks like he's progressed a little bit and has gotten better since coming back from his injury, he still needs time to progress and because he's still a really young player who's had very little time in this league, right, to get his feet under him. So they've got to be both, I think, because they've got a window. Otherwise, investing in DeMar and Zach LaVine over this past summer and the past 2 years, like That comes at a cost, and so you go all in. I think you have to go all in at this point. And they've got some pieces to make something happen, I feel.
No doubt. All right. The World Cup is currently going on while we're recording this. Canada just got knocked out, but got me thinking. What would a World Five plus a six man look like against a USA plus a six man team? First of all, let's discuss who would be on each team. I feel like the world is pretty consensus in a sense where I think you got Shea, Luka, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid, and as some love to our Raptor boy, I think Siakam is a good solid six man to have. The USA roster is a little. You could go either way with it. I feel For me, I'm between Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker. Stephen Curry is obviously shoe in. Jason Tatum shoe in. KD shoe in. And then I had AD or Braun. I'm between the two. I think LeBron is kind of obviously
Hmm.
the sexy name, but is he really still one of the top 5 or 6 U.S. players? Probably, but I think he's kind of more on the bubble personally.
Well, the world team, I think we mentioned this. It's Luka, Giannis, Joel, Jokic, Siakam, and who's our sixth man?
Oh, actually, yeah,
You had Siakam sixth man, right?
yeah. Maybe Shea should be our sixth man instead, because he,
I would definitely have Shea as
yeah.
sixth man. I don't know if I'd put Siakam's. I gotta say this. I think Siakam is a top five player in the league right now.
Whoa,
He's playing
damn.
at a. Do I think that he's better than Kevin Durant and all these other guys? No, but is he playing at that level and that confidence right now? I think I will say that. And he went into the year saying, "Why can't I be a top five player this year?" And so I gotta say, like he's got the numbers. Like he's literally got the numbers. He's got the numbers. And like in the span of how many minutes he played last night, he cooked Evan Mobley up and down the court.
True, true.
Um,
You know what,
so I mean,
Ruben? I'm not gonna say I agree, but I see it. I see it. The numbers for sure back him up. I think it's just a matter of him now that he's back healthy, kind of cementing it. Because for sure, I think he's right now shooing for All Star for sure, and
I
definitely
think he's
like
a all NBA for
All
sure.
NBA.
He's an
Yeah,
all NBA
yeah.
and again, I think it's a matter of him if he was healthy these last 2 3 weeks, or would the Raptors be in situations where there were a lot of close games
Oh
during
man,
that period of time,
and I can't
right?
lie, yo. You, I think you're man. Ruben, I used to be a big shit talker about Siakam, Mister. I didn't think of this, but I think I saw it on Twitter or something where they were saying Siakam is Anthony Bennett with a spin move, which now is completely fucking ludicrous because
It's
the
ludicrous,
bag,
absolutely
the
ludicrous.
bag is
Brother.
nice. The bag is nice.
About six fadeaways last night on like four different
Holy!
defenders. Dean Wade could barely stay in
Oh
front
my
of a dude.
gosh, Dean
Like it
Wade's
was
such a
absolutely
bum.
hilarious. Like, why is he even defending
I
Siakam? Like
know
that's so
that's
disrespectful.
free cheese. No, but so I think that's our world team, which is solidified. What will you put
Yeah.
for the U.S.?
Okay, so I have Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant. That's tough. Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant. I mean, I will still say LeBron.
Okay.
I will say Anthony Davis. Damn, you realize how big, like when you're talking about the bigs, it's pretty sad
Yeah,
for the US.
very sorry.
Because all the bigs are Team World, man. Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, like what in the world? Um, I'll say that yeah. So I'll say the two Lakers, Tatum, KD, Steph Curry, and the sixth man part is where I'm gonna get stuck here. But I'll throw in Kawhi Leonard when
Oh,
healthy.
okay, yeah, when healthy, Kawhi for sure.
But if we're doing the ifs and ands and buts, let's say currently as they are constructed, like or as they are, like this Kawhi Leonard, I would not I would not
Nah,
take.
man, I just want to see Kawhi hoop, man.
I know, me too. I don't know.
So I guess we're at between
It's tough,
so
man. There's
it
a lot of okay.
because
There's
I think
the
it's
wings.
between who who is the wing though? Oh, well, you got the wings. I think are Katie and Jason Tatum. So I think that's solid there. I think it's
Steph Curry's your point
between
guard. It's like
yeah.
easy money.
I think it's between Dono or Devin for who's going to be sixth man.
Donovan Mitchell. I'd rather take Paul George over Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, you are right. Nah, PG. Yeah. So
Oh
that
man,
means
like I was saying Devin Booker, PG. I mean, damn. Like
man,
let's go.
I'm taking PG over Devin Booker any day of the week.
Let's go around the league. And Dame Lillard's a guy we forget about, man. Dame Lillard
Yeah, but he's
is
the same thing where a little bit of the injury bug hitting him right now.
yeah. Right now, yeah, you're right. You're right. Damn, that's tough. I mean, damn,
Is there
that's
anybody
tough.
that's like Trey? But no, if we put Trey Young on this team, we already have Steph.
He's getting
But
cooked, brother.
every
He's
time
getting
down the
cooked.
floor, bah, bah.
Yo, let's throw a wrench in this one. Hey, who is your starting five for Team Canada and sixth man?
Oh, yo, because you totally could. Okay. Shay's the guy.
Shea, Jamal Murray.
Shay's the one. I put Jamal Murray beside him, Wigsy, and then
Yeah,
not gonna
I
lie,
would not. The one guy I
Benedict
would not
Mathurin.
put.
Fuck RJ, bro. Oh my
I would not put
goodness.
Benedict Mathurin in that starting lineup right now. He's
He
dog
he's
dog water.
he puts up the stats, but it's just a god awful efficiency. And then,
And who's our center? Dwight Powell.
oh man, I'd
Kelly
rather.
Olynyk is balling though.
Yeah, I'd probably put Kelly.
Man, if you think about the players, Shaden Sharp is looking nice.
Here's I'm
Don't
gonna
forget we
say it,
got
man.
Delano Banton, Chris Boucher,
If
Kem Birch.
France can beat the US next Olympics, I think Canada steals a game from them. No lie.
I agree with that, but
And
you
it
totally
might be
missed
the
the fact that
game.
you missed the fact that I dropped Kem Birch's name last.
Fuck Kim Birch, man.
Bro, I think we could have like a full NBA roster.
Yeah, at this
Well, I
point.
mean, we will have a full NBA roster of NBA players because I think there's something like 24 NBA players from Canada right now.
Yeah, and to think
Um,
that there's going to be some solid players that are left off. I mean,
and Nembard, he's always been involved. I think he will be a shoe in for the Canadian team because he's always been involved in the program every year.
Nikhil's
Corey Joseph.
probably. I love
Oh
Nikhil
yeah, right.
Alexander Walker, but he's probably going to
Nikhil Alexander.
miss the cut.
Yeah, I mean, should we do it right now? Should we just put a team of 12 together while we're at it?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Or you
So
know what? How about we do like five aside, draft styles. You know what I mean?
okay, yeah.
So, since you're like, I'll let you have the first pick, and
Okay,
okay, say it. Just
Shea Gilgis Alexander.
yeah, I will. I'll obviously take Wigsy.
Okay, Jamal Murray.
Give me Benedict.
Okay, so you got Benedict. Damn, this is where it gets him. Okay. I know he's playing like dog water. I just think he needs an environment change. I will still take RJ Barrett.
Okay. Uh, give me Lou Dort. Give me Lou Dort to lock him down.
Oh my God, Lou Dort. Yes, Chris Boucher.
Fuck. Oh man. I think I gotta go size for. Give me Kelly, man. Give me the blonde demon.
Oh yeah, at this point, I will take Delano Banton.
Okay, I'll go young guy for young guy. Give me Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, good pick. Good pick. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these picks. Shane Sharp.
Fuck, man. Shit. Let's see who can I still pick here. Give me Corey. I mean,
Hey, yo, you sure about that?
no, I take Nikhil Alexander Walker before I take Corey Joseph. But even that, man.
Who else is there?
Yeah,
Damn, Dylan Brooks, man. How can we forget about Dylan freaking Brooks?
because Dylan Brooks has turned into one of the most overrated players in the league. Oh God.
He's hey. I don't know about that dog. He's been solid, man. Man, we
What
got
is she just
him.
looking like, man?
Man, let's look at this list, hey? So let's just name them off. Shea Gill, okay, so Andrew Wiggins, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, R.J. Barrett, Corey Joseph, Kelly Olynyk, Gil Alexander Walker, Tristan Thompson. Is he still in the league? He is, right? Is he?
He's in the Kardashian league. I don't think he has a job right
Dylan
now though.
Brooks, Dort, Dwight Powell, Kem Birch, Brandon Clark, Trey
Oh yeah.
Lyles, Chris Boucher, the uh, the weirdo Josh Primo,
Oh,
Delano Banton, Maturin, Shaden Sharp, O'Shea Brissett, Mafalondu Kamangeli from Boston,
do you remember
Ignaz
how?
Brizdeikis.
Do you remember how good of a summer league Mifanu Kabengele had? I thought he was still. I thought he was going to secure like a roster spot.
Bro, Mafalondu Kamangeli, man.
He was
Damn.
giving motherfuckers business in the summer
Work. He's getting
league.
on the work. Bro, Nate Darling from the Hornets. Is he still there?
Definitely not.
Is he still in the Hornets?
Who's that? Grant Riller? He's Canadian, isn't he?
Grant Weller?
Riller? Yeah, he was. I think. Do you remember the video of that guy who LeBron told to go shoot a three and they got immediately benched? Oh no.
Oh,
He's American. Never mind.
man, there's some interesting names.
Yeah, this is all just to say that this game is growing. This proves why Canada should have another team, Vancouver, and this proves why basketball is truly an international game, no doubt. I mean, we named the Canadian starting five alone. That would probably get smoked by the All USA five, but given that we have Giannis, we have Jokic, we have Embiid, we have Luka, and Shea, I think it was like 4 of the top 5 in points per game, all international guys. All
Yeah.
international guys. And the only American, I think it might have been, I think it was Donovan Mitchell. Either way, the U.S. is, the only crazy thing is that on the world power rankings, how they got dropped down, which was insane. Like,
Spain.
like, come on now. Like, it's because the U.S. rolls out guys like Justin Jackson to play when the NBA players aren't going to play. But
Yeah.
basketball's an international game, man. Before you know it, Canada gonna have another team before you know it. I would love to see. You saw how they had games in Japan this year. I would love to see some teams go to the Philippines. They should definitely do. Might not be the best like to sell now, or think about it like this: if Jordan Clarkson gets traded to Phoenix and the Rockets and the Phils, that would be electric, man.
Oh, that would
Holy,
electric. Yeah,
that would be so much fun.
for sure. I mean, they definitely got to get like the Canadian guy, or sorry, the Filipino guys out there to play. Like, I'm sure tons of fans in the Philippines would go and watch a Utah Jazz Houston Rockets game. 100% they would. Like, Jalen Green's an idol in the Philippines right now.
True.
Like, and he's
Kai Soto will probably sign a 10-day with one of the teams.
and Jordan Clarkson has visited and he's been playing for the national team for like the last couple of years. So
Yeah, he was
I
hooping.
mean, he's been playing for Philippines. So I mean, it is what it is. Like these guys have been supporting their country and supporting the Filipinos like us, man, and giving us something to cheer about.
100%. I think that's the perfect way to end with that. This has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. Ruben, brother, you got anything to end off with?
Precious Achua, come back soon.
Ho, ho, ho. What a way to end. With that, stay safe,
shots.
stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.
Back shots. Peace, y'all.
Deuces.
Clip that.